So this lesson, we kind of went through some basic ideas and concepts. Got to start off by just knowing some pretty building block kind of things, and then we'll be able to move farther and faster. So the very first step is understanding and knowing the names of the strings. So from low to high as far as tone, so from the top of the guitar to the bottom of the guitar, when you're looking at it, it's E, A, D, G, B, E. There's a mnemonic device you could use. Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. This is one little thing. Come up with your own if you want to. But that's the standard tuning, and it's really good to know the names of the strings so that we can work a little bit further. The other concept we talked about was whole steps and half steps. A whole step equals 2 spaces or 2 frets. A half step is just 1 space or 1 fret. This is helpful in a lot of ways, and we're going to get to that eventually. But first, the first thing that's useful for is making sure that you're in tune, because if you're not in tune, you can't play. So if you have your tuner, maybe just start by tuning the E string, and then you make sure you're in a good spot, and then you go E, half step between E and F, full step between F and G, full step, 2 frets between G and A, and you have A. So you go to the 5th fret because that's where the A is on the E string, and you tune it next to the next string that's open. So you do that and use the concept on the piece of paper that I wrote out to see why it is that you go to the 5th fret to tune the D string from the A string, because the A goes A, whole step between B, B, C, half step between B and C, full step between C and D. So that puts you on the 5th fret. Next thing is the 5th fret as well, between the D string to get the G. But then there's the oddball to get the B string tuned on the 4th fret. So the G to A, full step, 2 frets, G, G sharp, A, or maybe G, A flat, A, same note, A, full step to the B. So that's why we tune it on the 4th fret. And then your last string is E, so the B gets to there from B, half step to C, C to D is a full step, so 2 frets, C, D, and between D and E is another full step, so D, E. So once you got that, it's just a pretty good concept. We talked about how the dots on the side of your guitar mean something. So on the first dot, that's a G, the next dot's an A, the next dot is actually kind of strange, that's a B, but the 9th fret dot is the one that's a little weird because that doesn't actually represent one of these notes that we're talking about. The flat or a sharp, and it's due to this half step situation, because if you just played the B and there's a dot there, there's only a half step between B and C, so C ends up on the 8th fret. You can still use the dots as reference points to know where you're at. Next one's D, and it's also not on a dot, right? So in between there, if you realize that this 9th fret, if we're just talking about the low E string, doesn't give you a natural full major note, but the E, the double dots is the octave, so that's E again. So every string that's open, when you get down to the double dots on the 12th fret, that note repeats. So that's a pretty important concept, but you can use that as shorthand. We also went over the pentatonic scale, so you can sound cool pretty much playing any note in this scale, and as you do it, it helps you do a couple things. It helps you feel the spaces in between the frets rather than just each fret going to a finger, which is the lesson that I'll sort of talk about at the end. But the pentatonic scale is just 1st fret, 4th fret, 1st fret, 3rd fret on the next string, which is the A string, 1st fret, 3rd fret on the D, 1st fret, 3rd fret on the G, 1st fret, 4th fret on the B, and 1st fret, 4th fret on the E, on the high E. You'll notice that the E's are the same, but the B, where it's got the weird tuning too, strangely enough, due to some theory, it's also where you go 4th fret. So what I mean by it sounds cool is any note that you play next to each other on this, it'll sound pretty musical, more so than other things. So, you know. Even when you're skipping around. So, anyway, that's how you start getting a shortcut to sounding cool and also increasing your strength and your muscle memory at the same time. Now, to increase your strength and your muscle memory for really big workout kind of thing, and understanding how your fingers need to be curved, how you need to place them to jump to the next strings, you got to do the spider exercise, which is repetitive, but it's so helpful in gaining you the hand strength to be able to move your fingers quickly around the fretboard, develop the muscle memory for where your fingers need to sit on the strings, and that's develop just a whole lot of things that are going to be very helpful to you in the future. So all it is walking up on each fret. So 4 half steps, 4 frets, and then you're going to shift that up 1 fret and go backwards. So it looks like this. Notice how my hands are staying kind of near or on the fretboard when there's a finger in front of it. Because it doesn't matter what I do if I've got a finger in front of it. But when you start to go backwards, so you take that walk up, move it up a fret, and you start to go backwards, then this is where the curvature of your fingers really helps. Remember, you don't want to be like a wall. You don't have to be like you're holding a ball. So the curvature of your fingers really helps here to get your fingers out of the way. See how my fingers stay curved? So they can still move to the next string, but they're out of the way enough, not super far, out of the way enough to where the string can still ring out. Alright, so I want you to do the spider exercise a bunch until your hands hurt. Do the pentatonic exercise. Look at, since you're good with language, look at the breakdown between the half steps and whole steps and those notes, the major notes that are on there. And we're going to be really far along before moving to the next step of learning some chords and getting your other hand, your right hand, working with rhythm. Remember we did this thing just to sort of remind you of the concept. If this is an E chord, and remember this E, this top string, is open, and between E and F is a half step. And if we do this thing where your first finger becomes the open strings, you have that same chord shape, but now you've just developed the next highest chord. So E, F, and that's just a half step, right? But between F and G is a whole step. G, where the third note is. So E, F, no dot. G's got a dot. A's got a dot. B's got a dot. C doesn't have a dot because it's a half step up from B. And since between C and D is a full step, there's no dot on D either. But when you get all the way up here, there's 2 dots. That's where everything repeats again. So that's E again. Okay. So work on those concepts. When we come back, we'll see if we can do something about maybe doing some rudimentary strumming on learn a couple chords and do maybe just some John Denver stuff if we can figure it out. It won't be finger picking, but we can definitely get some strumming going on, at least learning the chords or starting to learn the chords. That'll be behind that. But this is just sort of getting started and we're going to hit the ground running.